Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Oldson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about a newly published study that I've been mulling over for days because it aligns so closely with things I've been observing clinically for most of my career. In fact, this study provides support for the reason I moved from working with the pure science of weight loss to creating smart weight loss coaching and expanding what I do to incorporate a more holistic approach. It's fantastic to see the science finally catching up to what many of us in weight loss medicine have been watching play out for years. And of course, when the research finally confirms what you've been seeing in practice, you want to talk about it. So let's dig in. I'll start with a confession. Early in my career as a weight loss specialist, I did what most of us were trained to do. I looked for the best diet. I tried to figure out the right calorie target for each person. I thought if I could just get the numbers right, the right percent fat and carbs, the right number of grams of protein, the right calorie deficit, the right meal plan or exercise program, people would lose the weight and keep it off. I mean, isn't that what we're all searching for? The holy grail of weight loss that gives us the perfect formula for what to eat, when to eat, and how many calories to eat. To be fair, it took me a hot second to realize that approach wasn't working and to slowly move beyond calories in versus calories out. Not because the nutrition science was wrong exactly, but because it was profoundly incomplete. I would watch smart, motivated, well-intentioned people lose weight and then invariably gain it back, or struggle to lose it at all, even when they were following what should have been an effective plan. And when I started asking why, the answers were never really about the food. They were about stress, or exhaustion, or feeling out of control, or food desire, social norms around food, and a complicated and often painful relationship with their own bodies that no meal plan was going to fix. That's when I started reading beyond the journals on nutrition and metabolic health. And the more I read, the clearer it became. You cannot separate what people eat from how they feel, how they sleep, whether they feel supported, and how they talk to themselves. It's all one system. Let me give you some context before we get into the new study, because this isn't a new idea. It's just taken a long time for it to get traction in the medical literature and certainly in mainstream clinical practice. Most dietary trials focused on calorie restriction have reported modest sustained weight loss, typically less than 5% after 12 months, and long-term maintenance of that weight loss remains elusive. The idea that calories aren't the end-all be-all for weight loss isn't a fringe theory. Increasingly, it's the general conclusion of the mainstream research, published in places like the New England Journal of Medicine or the journal Obesity. There are a few reasons why calorie restriction alone, and certainly why calorie restriction with exercise alone, isn't enough. And they're worth understanding because they completely reframe what weight loss and maintenance requires. First, there's the biology. When you eat fewer calories, the body becomes more efficient and it burns fewer calories, even as your desire for extra calories increases. This combination of rising hunger and slowing metabolism is essentially a recipe for failure and recidivism when it comes to weight loss. This was documented in classic studies done at Rockefeller University and at other institutions dating back decades, and we've been building on the findings ever since. And yet, despite that, the old calorie counting approach to weight loss has been hard to shake. Research has found that diet-induced weight loss results in long-term changes in appetite hormones that lead to increased hunger and weight regain. Specifically, calorie cutting increases the hunger hormone ghrelin. It also reduces the satiety or fullness hormone leptin, so you don't feel as full or satisfied after eating. There are other fullness hormones that are impacted by restricting calories, including GLP-1, CCK, PYY, pancreatic polypeptide, and amylin, among others. So your body is literally working against your efforts to lose weight by making you hungrier and less satisfied when you're cutting calories, not because you lack willpower, but because of normal physiology. And then there's stress. Cortisol is a stress hormone that raises blood pressure and insulin production while simultaneously suppressing the immune system. As insulin levels go up, blood sugar drops, making us crave fatty, sugary foods. In my field, we consider insulin an obesogenic hormone because of its impact on weight. Stress, psychological distress, and elevated cortisol secretion all promote abdominal fat accumulation, which is a feature of metabolic syndrome. When we pile calorie restriction on top of chronic stress, we're asking people to fight their own biology with willpower alone. For a few weeks, maybe, but long term, it just doesn't work. Randomized controlled trials of dieting demonstrate average maintained weight loss over time, often below 1 kilogram, which is barely more than 2 pounds. Research has found the average woman can sustain calorie restriction for only about 4 weeks. 4 weeks? That's not a personal failure. That's a biological limit. I found that to be true in my own life back when I used to diet, and I bet you found this too. If you tighten way up and restrict what you eat, eventually you have breakthrough behaviors eating the very things you're trying to avoid, and eventually you throw in the towel. So the idea that we can solve a stress-driven, hormonally complex, emotionally loaded program by handing someone a calorie target, that was never going to be the whole answer. I just wish medical training had reflected that sooner. Before we dig into the study that was just published in the journal Nutrients, let's pause for a quick word from our sponsor. Hi, this is Dr. Lisa Oldson, physician and founder of Smart Weight Loss Coaching. I'd like to briefly say thank you so much to our regular listeners who follow the show and tune in every week. My team and I are incredibly grateful that you take the time to listen in and also to share our show with those you care about. Truly, thank you. Also, if you're serious about wanting to lose weight, I'd love to see you increase your engagement with our podcast workbook. The workbook goes along with episodes number 1 through 50 and propels you to take action to create habits that will help you lose weight and transform your health. It's available through our website at smartweightlosscoaching.com. And we're back. Let's look at the study I want to focus on today that was just published by researchers in Brazil. They developed a protocol called Nutrircon, Nutrircom, Nutrircom. What makes it special is that it's explicitly designed to address weight, not just through the old standbys, diet and exercise, that most people look to for weight loss, but through what researchers call a multi-component, person-centered approach. They ran a 6-month randomized controlled trial that had a rigorous design, studying almost 90 women with obesity, divided into 3 groups. Group 1 was the control, a personalized calorie-restricted diet with a deficit of 500 to 1,000 calories per day. That's a standard very low or low-calorie approach to weight loss. Group 2 received 10 individual coaching sessions focusing on nutritional guidance alongside psycho-emotional support, behavioral strategies, eating autonomy, mental health, sleep, mindfulness, and quality of life. Group 3 got everything I just mentioned for Group 2, plus monthly group sessions for community and social support. Here's what they found. The majority of participants lost weight. All three saw reductions in waist circumference and fasting glucose, and all three gained some lean muscle mass. So yes, calorie restriction does move physical markers, especially in the first 6 months of a program. I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying it's useless, but the intervention groups demonstrated broader improvements. The biggest differences showed up when they looked at the whole person. Anxiety was completely unchanged in the calorie restriction group, while it decreased significantly in both NutriCom groups. Depression symptoms were also significantly reduced in the group receiving the individual sessions. And notably, there was an increase in stress levels observed in the low-calorie group, consistent with evidence linking calorie restriction to heightened psychological stress, increased cognitive burden related to eating, and intensified feelings of guilt and failure, particularly among women. This supports the prior, somewhat surprising observations that dieting causes weight gain, and one mechanism for that is the heightened level of stress it induces. In fact, ghrelin, which you know is a hunger hormone, is now being thought of also as a stress hormone. We have an increase in our circulating ghrelin when we're chronically stressed, and that can lead to increased eating, particularly of high-calorie foods. Importantly, self-compassion, which is the ability to relate to your body and your eating with kindness rather than shame and judgment, improves significantly in both NutriCom intervention groups and did not improve in the calorie restriction group. The researchers themselves wrote that the addition of mindful eating, active listening, sleep promotion, and the encouragement of joyful physical activity addressed multiple dimensions of care and were fundamental to improving participants' quality of life. It's this integration that drives adherence and sustainability in a weight management program. That phrase, adherence and sustainability, matters. What they're really saying is when people feel better, when their anxiety is lower, when they feel less shame around food, when they feel like they belong to something, they're more likely to stick with it. And when they stick with it, they eventually lose more weight. Even more critical is that they're far more likely to keep the weight off. Personally, I'd love to see this same study conducted over a year or 2 or even 5 years. But of course, it's really expensive to do that, and it's hard to get funding for big studies that don't involve the pharmaceutical industry. So we may not get our ideal studies, but I can tell you that since I started incorporating all of these other elements into my program, it's been a game changer. Let's look at another study, this one out of University of California, San Francisco, that was published in the Journal of Obesity. Researchers found that women with excess weight who received mindfulness training to reduce their stress had significant reductions in cortisol, and they maintained their weight. The control group, who didn't receive any mindfulness training, continued to gain weight and didn't have any lowering of their cortisol. That's the stress-weight connection playing out in real time. We know from research on long-term calorie restriction that adherence to a low-calorie plan is highest in the first 3 months and declines to around 10% after 12 months. That's certainly not because people stop caring or trying. It's because the approach itself doesn't address the underlying drivers of weight. The NutriCom study is adding a really important piece to a body of evidence that's been building for a long time, that weight is not primarily a math problem. It's not just calories in versus calories out. It's a whole person problem, and it requires a whole person solution. That means working on the stress that's keeping cortisol elevated. It means addressing sleep, because poor sleep disrupts the hunger and fullness hormones in the body. It means building a relationship with food and with your body that isn't rooted in shame or punishment. It means finding a positive and supportive community, because isolation is itself a stressor, and belonging is actually protective. None of this is what people used to call soft science. It's real and impactful science. It's the science of the biology behind why we struggle to lose weight. If you've been on calorie-restricted diets and they haven't worked the way you hoped, I want you to hear this clearly. The research supports your experience. It's not a willpower problem. You're not lacking commitment or discipline. The tool you were given to address your weight was simply incomplete. The good news is that there are more complete approaches available now, and the evidence base for them is growing. The question to ask yourself, whether you're working with a physician, a coach, a registered dietitian, or working on your own to lose weight, is, does this approach address me as a whole person? Does it address my stress, my sleep, my relationship with food, my relationships in general? Does it give me community and support, not just a food plan? Because those aren't extras. According to a growing body of research, and this new study is a great example, those are the things that actually make the difference in a healthy weight loss and lifestyle modification program you can stick with for the long term. You probably know what time it is. It's time for your NBA, your next best action for today. Is there something that bubbled up for you as you listened to today's episode? Something you know is missing from your approach? Are you still holding on to that old calories in versus calories out, simplified but ineffective approach to weight loss? If so, I encourage you to think of one action you can take today to expand what you're doing to better support yourself going forward. You've got this. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.